question that I get asked quite a lot is, how do you do naval or amphibious landings in this game? How do I invade a nation overseas or over water in general? Well, I'm going to answer that for you today. So there's a couple of ways to perform a naval invasion in this game, and they rank in difficulty, but I'll show you the basics of all of them. To start, the simplest way, and the way the AI will always do pretty much, is by using your normal merchant marines. Now, if you don't already know what a merchant marine is essentially a trading ship that has been commandeered essentially by a government and repurposed for military use. It is not armed, it's not defended, it's just, well, it's a ship. So, to give you an example, let's go ahead and take this infantry battalion motorized. As we see, this is not an amphibious unit. It has no special naval capabilities. So we'll take this and we will give it an order to sea transport. Now, you don't always need to give it this order. Sometimes with AI, they can figure it out if you just do a move to, but generally you'll always want to do a sea transport. Now, for example, I can tell it to sea transport over here to Korea. Now, we'll unpause the game and we'll see that our little... Here we go, he's taking the rails, and now he goes over here to the pier. Once he's at a pier, and this works at a port or a pier, by the way, he will start loading up in a merchant marine ship. And here's the stats if you care. It can go very far, it costs some maintenance, doesn't have much good defensive or otherwise stats, but it can survive enough to get somewhere. And as you see, he's now loaded up onto that merchant marine. He's undocked, a little bit slower than otherwise if he was at a port compared to a pier. And now he's gonna head over here. Let's go ahead and speed that up. So the merchant marine will sail. Once again, it will have no idea how to protect itself, but it will sail. I have AI off, but it still managed to find its way there. And it lands, and it goes ahead, and it's here, and that's it. That is how you basically naval transport any unit in the game in the simplest way. And this also works for naval invasions. So if I were to do this to North Korea while being at war, then I would land here all the same. However, I would not capture the hex and be able to supply and operate out of it unless there was no defenders. And you can see the garrisons, there's none here. So if I landed here right now and then there was no actual units on top of this, then this method would be sufficient. This method would allow me to take this hex and start to draw supply from it and push a naval invasion of North Korea in this manner. Now, while this is the simplest way of doing something like this, it is, I think, obviously not the best way of doing something like this, because you're undefended the whole time. Sending other naval ships to escort is very recommended, and using any air power in your vicinity that you can bring to bear would also be highly recommended, but that's more on the realm of strategy. Keeping strategy and this basic method in mind, there's other ways we can do this. Let's go ahead and go to an engineer battalion here. So this engineer battalion may look the same, but it's not. As we can see, this one is an engineer. Engineers come with bridging and come with amphibious. Now, this opens up a couple more ways to do amphibious invasions. So, for example, let's say the amphibious assault I wish to do is as simple as crossing a river here, for example. Well, if I get on any river hex in the game with an amphibious unit, because amphibious units can step one hex onto water, essentially, so they can cross even a 2 hex, like, segment where there's water in between. For example, right here, I would be able to move amphibious units across, theoretically. And especially right here. It would be able to do that. And since it's an engineer, it could also go there and essentially create a pontoon bridge and allow other units to cross over it. Now that's more if you're in an inland invasion already, but it can be used for some amphibious purposes, primarily if we look over here in Europe, somewhere such as Denmark might have some ways to exploit this. Somewhere such as Germany, we have some river hexes here, might have ways to exploit this. Of course, again, that is inland. But what about by sea specifically? So we have the engineer unit, and now this goes for any amphibious unit. As we see, we have a little amphibious unit down here, a symbol, and we have it right here. This is the most important thing for the next part I want to tell you. So I'm going to do the same thing I just did. I'm going to tell this to sea transport, but I'm not going to tell it to go to this city. I'm I'm gonna tell it to go right here. And so, if we unpause the game, he's gonna start going to the same pier that the last one went to. And as we see, he's coming out, but he looks a little different. Don't you notice that this is actually a Merchant Marine LC? So if we slow the game down here, look at this, we'll see there's different stats, sort of. You can look at it if you want. The most important thing to note about LC Merchant Marines is that they can undock anywhere. They don't have to undock right here. He's trying to go this path, but let's remind him what way I want him to go. LC literally just means landing craft. It means it does not need the support of heavy machinery and equipment at a port in order to land. It can actually land stuff amphibiously. I don't know if he'll understand what the move to... Okay, he did. And just like that, it was quite simple. We got our engineer landed, and if I was doing a amphibious invasion on another nation, for example, instead of landing here at this port at Haiju, I could have landed anywhere else around that is even a river, hex, or plains or anything. Now, they'd arrive here without supplies, so you have to work to keep them under supply, and this comes with the tactics of bringing air transports, air support, and things like that, sending supply trucks and stuff. But as we see, we have a way to land at enemy piers and ports, as well as friendly ones, and ways to land, well, anywhere that has a coast, but comes with more risk, yet more versatility. Because it could be totally possible to land to take Nampo with the method I have initially showed you, but it would also be possible to land right here, cross this river, and then attack Nampo like this, all the same. You have two methods available to you now. There is one method left to teach you for how to perform these amphibious invasions. This one is truest to how you would do it in real life. It is also the most complicated one and most underused one. So if we go over to America, we'll find I have set up here a couple of units. This right here is a landing ship medium. As we look at it, it has its stats. Now, this, however, is not a landing craft like I showed you with the amphibious units or anything like that, but it does have, as we can see, can unload away from dock, which is an amphibious thing, basically. It can unload units wherever it wants, but this is a dedicated naval ship, not a land unit converted into a naval ship. Therefore, you produce this the same way you produce other naval ships. This one will be under naval designs, and it will be under transport, and it's any of them that have unload away from dock. However, anything with cargo can technically load up a unit. In terms of naval invasions, however, it needs the little symbol that says can unload away from dock if you want to use it anywhere else except for a pier or a port. It can still be useful to unload things at piers or ports. Let's say you're trying to transport massive amounts of units, but on like one ship, for example, that has a fuck ton of capacity. Look at this, 5,000 capacity. You could put a lot of units on this ship and then sneak them across the ocean in one ship. However, they'd all die if this one ship died as well, so take that as you will. And again, it is also more complicated to do. Now, this landing craft, it can fight off close air attack. It has its own stats. The stats of them are different depending on which one you build, but for the purpose of this, I'm just displaying. As we can see, it has a cargo capacity of 165 tons. I can only fit 165 tons in there, in terms of multiple units or maybe just one unit. So to display this, I brought over this mounted infantry. As we can see, this mounted infantry only weighs 119 tons. Therefore, theoretically, it should fit, right? Well, no, actually, and this is where I think a lot of players might mess up. You cannot fit this onto this transport, even though this is 119 and this can hold 165. Why? Because this is not actually 119. Sure, that is as much as the equipment of the unit weighs. But what about all the supplies it's carrying? All the ammunition and all that stuff? Even if a unit doesn't have cargo capacity, it still carries fuel, it still carries supplies, and I don't know if personnel has a weight, but it carries things is what you need to know. So if we hover over it right now, if you look under cargo there, you'll see the weight is actually 168 tons because it is carrying 70 personnel, 111 fuel, and 14 supplies right now. It's carrying all of that, and that gets factored into the weight. That is 3 tons over what this can carry, so I cannot load this up. However, we have a normal infantry unit here. A normal infantry unit which weighs by default 46 tons. What does it weigh with all of its ammunition? It doesn't carry fuel. There's personnel and supplies. 58 tons. So we've gone up still a fair bit. Yeah, which definitely makes me believe that personnel actually weighs something. But with this, we know that 58 tons will fit on here. In fact, I could fit 2 of these units on here. And then getting onto this is actually rather simple. I can select on the unit that I wish to load, and then I can load into, and then right-click the hex that has the naval unit I want to load into, and then I can click that unit with my left mouse button, and if we unpause, we'll see I just plopped on in there. If we look at the ship right there, you'll see under the cargo, it's now not all supplies, it's also carrying infantry now. If I wish to unload the unit, and now this can happen anywhere, I can pick anywhere that has a coast to unload if I want to, but I'll put it on the port for a clearer example. I will simply hit unload as an order, and then when it's selected, I will right click where I want to unload, and then as we unpause, the unit will pop out back here. And with that, you now know the basics of how to take land units, move them around the map navally, and commence amphibious invasions. The tactics of how you use your units to support these mechanics is up to you, as these mechanics by themselves can get entire formations of land units killed if not properly escorted. But I do hope that this explanation on how to at least do the mechanics will help you. Let me know if there's anything else in this game I have not already made a guide on that you would like to see me make a guide on, or maybe in any other games you see me playing as well. There's more of these to come, so for now, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.